So our next strike is called a cross, as boxing would relate it to. Some other systems call it a reverse punch. It's the same thing. So boxing, it'd be typically delivered as after the jab. It'd be the jab, cross. You see the hip motion here. So this isn't a drop step. It's the hip rotation that causes the damage here. So when we do our cross, it's the same thing. We're just in T stance rather than this boxing format. So we're coming across the body, and the reason it's called a cross is because if we're in a center line here, the punch is actually going just over our center line. So it's a cross. I'm crossing my body when I strike. So there is no drop step for this. It's the hip rotation, just like this. Boom. It's the same principle as the jab. I'm using this little horseshoe part of my hand to do the strike. Ideally right here, but somewhere in this area. This is going to be one of the hardest parts of your hand. So it takes a lot of damage, it can take a lot of punishment without being damaged. So if we put them both together, it would look like a drop step and then a hip rotation. So jab, cross, boom, boom. But for this, just so you can kind of see it isolated in its own element, is this hip rotation and the jab. And just like when we did the jab, how we had the drop step drop just like a couple milliseconds before the jab landed, it's the same thing here. It's moving in unison, but this hip has to create the power, and my body is getting the power from the hip. So if I just turn my hip, it turns everything with it. So the jab portion is just where all the energy exits out of my body. So hip rotation starts it and jab out. So the hip rotation and then the strike.